Hi, friends. Welcome to Law Chat with Girija. This is your legal BFF, Girija Patel. Thank you for tuning in. I am so grateful for every single one of you for tuning in and listening, because this is what Law Chat is about. It's a place for you to be inspired, a place for you to gain some more wisdom and knowledge about your industry, but a place also where you can receive mentorship through storytelling. Thank you so much. Now, I know that before we walk into this next episode, whether you're tuning in through your iTunes or through other form of a podcast, or whether this is on YouTube, I would love for you to share this information with someone else, somebody who is your friend, your family, a colleague, somebody in your community, someone who can really be inspired by this as well and benefit from the information and from the stories that we're sharing with you today. Law Chat is to help the community, is to boost the community, is to inspire the community. And I want you to help me to do that. So thank you so much for that. Let's get started. Hi, friends. Welcome to Law Chat. Nicknamed Dream Releaser by her clients, Shanna Skidmore, CEO of Skidmore Consulting, makes money make sense and helps creators and innovators dig through their data, optimize the right metrics, and get a firm grasp on their business finances. I mean, don't we all want that and need that in our lives? I absolutely always do. But the best thing is that she provides a judgment-free zone, because I feel like I need to clean up my finances before someone comes to clean it up for me. But after her experience as a Fortune 100 financial advisor and handling corporate finance in a startup fashion company, Shanna found a home for her passion and founded Skidmore Consulting. She's breaking the norms and helping her clients master their finances while they're doing what they do best. I am so happy to have you on Law Chat. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I always like to talk about, we're in season 3 now. And like I was telling you earlier, I'm also like amazed that I've been doing this for 2 years. And you're now part of the 100+ episodes that we're going to be releasing, which is so crazy. Yeah. But, at the end of the day, we all might be achieving a lot of things, but when the finances don't make sense, and the finances are not telling the same story of all the work that we're putting into it, that's scary. And that can feel very defeating at the end of the day also. So I definitely want to talk about that with you later on. But in the beginning, I really want to talk about how you even came into this space, and where was Shanna before she started becoming a total boss person, like what were you doing before that?
Yeah, so I love this conversation because I totally agree. It stinks to work really, really hard to grow a business and not have money at the end of the day to show for it. Even though, most people I work with didn't start their business just to make money. Yeah. It is really important and makes you feel good to get a paycheck after all the hard work. So I am really passionate about helping simplify the math of business and personal finance, so that people can feel the fruits of their labor financially and in what they want in their life. So my background is in finance. I actually have a psychology and art degree as well. I always joke that I was like a misfit puzzle. I never knew exactly how all those things came together. So I got my degree in finance and started right out of college working as a Fortune 100 financial advisor. So I helped with personal finance, insurance, investments, those types of things. And I mostly worked with entrepreneurs, a lot of medical practices, doctors who owned their own practice. And so I early on knew I was really passionate about entrepreneurship. And so I did that for 5 years, met my husband there. And after we got married, I said, if you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you do? And he said, I would design and build airplanes. So that required him to go back to school and get another degree. And so we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, basically within the first year of our marriage, both quit our jobs in finance. And that's when I moved over to corporate finance. So I was hired by a private equity firm. So I would say, think Shark Tank, but not Shark Tank. So for a startup fashion design company, and I worked directly under their CFO. It's called a controller. So I worked on all operations and finance. And that's where I saw this amazing puzzle come together of art, fashion, and the psychology of money, behavioral finance, and this need of female-owned companies. And I don't just work with female-owned companies, but primarily a lot of small businesses are owned by women and women who want to also build a life outside of their business. And that's a really unique way of building a business model that also allows you to be a mom or have interests outside of your business. So while I was working with the fashion designer, she started her family. And so I knew that there was this need for a female in finance because it's a very male dominated industry. But I didn't know how to start a consulting company that wasn't really on my radar. And so I worked with this fashion designer for about a year and a half, and I just knew I wanted to get out from behind the desk. I just didn't want to do spreadsheets anymore. I wanted to do something more creative. And so I actually quit finance altogether. Well, I thought, and I started working with a floral designer, Amy Asaba in Atlanta, Georgia, because I was like, I just want to do flowers. I grew up in the garden with my grandmother. I'd always loved flowers. I want to do something more creative. I did about 2 events with Amy, and a new floral design was not my calling. But naturally, I just started asking questions. Amy, why don't you have a breakdown crew? Why aren't you taking a steady salary? I'm a naturally curious person. And for 7 years, I'd been asking these questions. And Amy was like, please just help me. And so I essentially became Amy's controller and CFO and started helping her with the operations and finance of her business. And because she had such a big name in the Atlanta area, people started to notice. And so other people just started asking me, can you help me with this? And I always want to encourage people who are just starting their business because, like, guys, I had no idea what my offers were. I didn't know how to price myself. There was no model to follow. I always say I just kind of threw spaghetti on the wall and saw what stuck. What could I help people with? And so I, for the first unofficial year of my business, did that. I was helping people without ever really having a business. And then by doing that, when I launched my company officially at the end of 2013, it just really took off because I knew my offers, I knew my pricing, and of course I had to learn and tweak along the way. But now I see how all of those things came together, art and finance and psychology. And that's what I do every day is teach people how to overcome their money mindsets, how to understand the few numbers in their business and personal finances that they need to know. And I'm just really passionate about empowering entrepreneurs to use money to make really strategic decisions in their business. I don't think any CEO wants to be the numbers person in their business, but I believe that we all need to know certain numbers to grow our business well. So that's how I've done this now for 9 years. I've been in finance for 15, and I just absolutely love it.
Wow, that actually brought so many questions into my mind, but then also so much of that's relatable. And I'm just going to kind of rewind a little bit. And I know, like even on your website, it says you may not have started your business simply to make money because there is a passion, there is a desire that you're trying to fulfill. And you see that gap and you're like, oh, that just ignites me. But you need money to make it sustainable. You need money to grow. You need money to get the needle moving forward also.
Right.
And it's so important to make sure that we're not, ignoring it. And it doesn't matter where that money's coming from. It doesn't matter if you've inherited it. It doesn't matter if it's a loan or invest, whatever. There's more responsibility when it's coming from somebody else's pocket. And so you need to make sure it makes sense as a business owner.
Right.
And I think also you're right. Like I also by default serve a lot of women entrepreneurs in my business only because majority of them are the ones that are creating small businesses out there. And small business doesn't mean you just started a business or you're making thousands. It could be you're in the millions, but you're still considered by definition a small business. And I think it's so important, like even for me, like I'm building this business of mine in my law practice and some other things that I'm doing. But at the same time, I want to have that integration of work and life where I can still be a mom. I don't have to be a checked out mother because I have to focus totally on this thing. And so I know that, you had that evolution and, you also got married and then you went to Atlanta and you started working the fashion startup at that time.
Yes.
Right. And did you at that time start a family or did you have a family at that time? Like kids? That's what I mean.
Yeah. Nope. It was just the 2 of us. That was 2011.
Yeah.
I just had my daughter in 2021. So 10 years later. So
wow.
No, I had my business for quite a while before we had my daughter.
That's awesome.
I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I have to stop and talk with you about the number one thing I'm asked about by entrepreneurs: contracts. They're vital to any business relationship and to protect your business. But I also know that entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, money is tight. But I would never want you to compromise on a strong legal foundation. So enter yourcontractbuddy.com, a website created by me with contract templates created and drafted by me and fellow industry partners. They're ready to use and easy to plug in immediately. And they are not restricted to any specific state. So yourcontractbuddy.com is sponsoring this episode, and you and your listener can get 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. Yes, you heard me right. 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. And now back to our awesome conversation.
And then, so when you started at the fashion startup, I know like startup companies, they're very different from corporate America. And a lot of times there's a lot going on and you just kind of have to be flexible and adaptable to what's happening. But if there's, listeners out there who are considering themselves to be startup companies or just a new business and they're just kind of here and there all over, like at that time, what was some of your experience working as a controller, working as somebody who's pretty high up there on the level of the totem pole of do this, do that? And what are some ways to kind of find your way back to the center and not be all over the place as a startup company?
I love this question so much. And this is exactly what I teach in kind of my signature program, the Blueprint Model. I believe there's I call them building blocks that every business owner needs to have in place. And I saw this with my fashion designer. And then when I worked with Amy, the floral designer, I saw these very similar patterns of people who are great at what they did, but didn't have those fundamental pieces in place. So I think one of the very first, this is actually the second building block that I teach. The first is all about vision casting, but the second is just foundational pieces of what you offer, who it's for, and how to price it. So I think so many people launch into their business and are still, just like I said, I took a year to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. I think we've all heard niche down to scale up. Mm-hmm. And so many people are like, I can't niche, I'm multi-passionate. But if you can really tell people what you do very clearly, you're going to get a lot of more business really quickly. So I think, first of all, just start with one niche. And as soon as you build your brand, it's much easier to branch out into new offers, new revenue streams. So first, like, what do you do? Who is it for? What do you offer? And then from there, price it correctly. That was the biggest thing I saw with my fashion designer. She was piecing out, with fashion design, which I really love this because my grandmother was a wedding dress designer. So I loved working in fashion, and she was piecing out all of her things. So in New York, she had someone who was sewing, someone who was cutting, someone who was supplying buttons, but she never knew exactly how much the cost of one piece was. And so she had this price that was just kind of dart on the wall. That should be enough to make money, but didn't know all these costs were really adding up. So that was what we tackled first, was understanding how much it costs to produce her goods. That allowed us to price profitably every time. So those are kind of the first. So that's in the Blueprint Model. That's building block 2 and 3. What do you offer? Who's it for? And then pricing it for profit. So those are the big things I saw. And the same with Amy. Amy had already been in business, my floral designer, when I started working with her for quite a while. So people knew what her offers were pretty set. But it was, again, understanding costs. She was pricing her flowers, and she was known as the expensive floral designer, but she still wasn't able to make profit. And so we just had to look at what is all the cost and how do we price this to actually create profit every time. So that's where I would have everyone start. Know what you offer, who it's for, and then price it for profit.
Yeah. So COGS, as they call it, or cost of goods sold, is literally everything that goes into making that service or product. With product production, it's a little bit easier because you kind of can put a number and there's a lot of metrics involved in there. And it's kind of like, okay, I know where this raw material is coming from. I know what the production costs are because you can kind of measure it. Well, for someone who's in a service industry, how do you do that? How do you put a price on, aside from, my hour is this, but how do you even put a price on that? Like, how do you figure out pricing?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think a big struggle for all entrepreneurs. So I say that cost, therefore price, is made up of 3 factors: material cost, labor cost, and your time. So I believe that we, as the entrepreneur, are basically two people in our business. We are first the worker bee. So we kind of wear two hats. We're the worker bee hat and we're the CEO hat. So we are kind of two people. And I hear a lot of people say, it's okay that I'm not paying myself. You know, businesses don't make profit for a certain number of years, and it's fine that I'm not paying yourself. And I'm like, that's true, that it's okay that you're not paying yourself as the CEO, but as the employee of your business, we should all be getting paid. If we can't pay ourselves, that's a pretty good sign that the pricing isn't correct. So for service-based, you're right. You know, if you're talking about any kind of goods, it's like it's easy to figure out the material cost of this. But with a service-based business, it's your time as the employee of your business. I always have people track their time from start to finish in creating any type of service. So I started as a service-based provider before I moved into the education piece. And I got my pricing wrong for the first 6 months. And I'm just so thankful. I always joke and say, Toggle is the tool that I use. It's TOGGL to track my time and say Toggle, say my business and my marriage, because it told me my pricing wasn't correct. I had created a set price for an advisory fee and I thought it was great. It was $1,500 a month. And I remember getting that first check and I was like, babe, like we're doing this, you know, and I tracked my time to deliver all the deliverables I had promised. It took me twice as long than I expected. And I remember at the end of the day, what I charged my first client and how long it took me, I made negative $8 an hour. And that told me everything about my price. And so if you're in a situation like I was, where it's like, I don't think I could raise my price yet, I just delivered less for that price. And so that's how I created profitable prices. So for anybody who's service-based, anybody in business, I truly believe should track their time. And if you're service-based, track from start to finish on every single client, every single job. And that'll tell you a lot about your price. And then to follow that up, when you said, well, how do you even price your time? You know, I hear this all the time, like, what are you worth? I think that's just such a, I like specific, like, let's put a number to that. So I always say, start with an employee's working wage. Depending on where you are in the country, I have people start at $15 to $20 an hour. And just, if it took you 10 hours to do something at an employee's working wage, that's $200. If I did that math right in my head, and that'll tell you $200 of cost. So of time cost. So that's how I teach all of my students to price for profit based on a formula that I've created. And it starts though with understanding how much time as an employee of your business does it take. So for anybody listening who's like, I don't even know where to begin. Everybody says price for profit, charge what you're worth. That just is so out there. I don't know. I would say track your time, and then it'll really help you understand, okay, if I put a working wage that even at $20 an hour, I need to be charging a lot more.
That is actually such great advice. Okay, I'm going to totally be candid. When I first started my practice, I didn't know, like, I know how to be a lawyer. I knew lawyering. I knew that. I just didn't know how to be an owner of a law firm. Like, it's hard. They don't teach you that. And I come from a family that's full of entrepreneurs. I've seen what businesses run like, but owning a law practice is a little different than just, you know, I'm selling clothes. I don't know. And so I remember and I like to do flat fees. I hate doing hourly stuff because it just really bogs me down on my end. And I like to make sure my clients are also not getting surprises. Like, they just need to know what they're paying for. But I used to charge only $350 for a contract, which is crazy talk because it took me, my hourly fees are more than that in sense. And then yet it took me like double or triple the amount just to create that contract, to draft it. And I, again, was feeling that weight that I am not fulfilling myself, and I'm not being, and it causes a lot of resentment for no reason too, because you're just like, gosh, I'm taking away so much time away from other things that I could be doing, whatever that other thing might be. I'm still not feeling fulfilled money-wise because I feel like I'm struggling, and that struggle should not be there.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I love that how
you definitely aren't alone. I hear this all the time.
I'm glad you shared that, because a lot of times, you know, you feel like a fool. Honestly, you're just like, what was I thinking? And then, and even now, you know, there are times when you're just like, gosh, that totally is not priced properly, in the sense of I'm giving way more. And part of me doesn't know how, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that you're like, no, I don't want to give less. Like, I know this is what makes it 100%. I don't want to give that 90%. And so then maybe it's okay to charge what you believe it should be charged at then. And I like how you actually, because it's hard sometimes to figure out what your worth is, because that truly is just a very like enigma of a question, but looking at what the prices are per hour and somebody who's working as an employee, that makes sense, and treating yourself as an employee at that point and figuring it out. And that's a great way to just start. And then you can grow on that.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's so much easier. I hear a lot about emotional pricing, discounting your price just to book the job. And I always teach my students and clients, if you know why to the penny you charge what you charge, it's much easier to sell that value to a client. And so when you say, it takes me 10 hours to draft this contract, I charge this much per hour, here's the price. Somebody that you're working with calculates that in their head. And I always say price is about perceived value. And so when you explain why you're charging what you do and they're calculating in their head, okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's much easier to sell at a profitable price. A lot of students I work with and clients end up doubling or tripling their price. And that is so scary. Everybody's like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to book anybody. Everybody's going to say no. And I'm like, actually, if you are able to explain why you charge what you charge, it will be amazing to see. People will not question it as much as you think they will, because we're over here doing the same thing. It's like, this is your expertise. I don't know how to draft a contract. And if you're like, Shanna, it takes me 10 hours to do this. Here's what you're going to get. I'll say, okay, you know what? That's worth it to me. Let's do it. So I think just understanding your price, even if it's higher than you think, is going to book more clients than just putting out what your competition is pricing and not really knowing why. So that's why I always want people to understand price is just made up of 3 factors: material costs, labor costs, and your time. And when you understand all those things and then price profitably, it's so much easier to book clients because you know why. And that makes you feel confident. And then when you're confident, they'll feel confident.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, what great. I mean, honestly, extremely tangible tips on pricing, because a lot of times, you do hear, oh, price at what you're worth at, but you're like, I don't even know what that means, there's no value to my worth in that sense. And so it just makes no sense to me either.
Yeah.
But I like that this is such a tangible way of just figuring it out from the bottom up rather than just, and you're right, looking at competition just kind of gives you a understanding of the parameters that may be reasonable, but then there are people out there that are definitely beyond that, and but then their services might be beyond that too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think price is, again, all about perceived value, and so we are willing to pay for what we perceive to have the most value. And so I am always really saddened when I see people just comparing their prices to others, because I'm like, you have no idea why they price that way. They could use different materials. They could use subpar materials to you. They could work a lot faster than you work. They could have 15 years of experience and you have 1. I just believe price should not be arbitrary. And I don't think there's a lot of resources out there, which is why I'm so passionate about what I do, that make it not arbitrary. Like it can be a calculation, just calculate it up. And then when you're like, hey, I made the calculation, I know exactly why I priced this way. I'm telling you, when you explain that to clients, I literally see most of my clients double and triple their prices because they know why they charge what they are charging, and they're able to explain that to their clients. So
that's incredible. I love these tips because it's truly, you've added like a full functionality to the process, and and how to come up with that number. And I kind of like dived into this whole thing and I was like, oh, okay. But I wanted to also ask you, when you were starting and you shifted from the fashion startup company and you started helping in the floral, and then I feel like naturally and organically, you just kind of shifted into this other space of, let me just help you with this money part of your business. But then as that 1 year, when you had people coming in and, aside from the pricing part of it, was there any other challenges that you faced during that time?
I think what I saw with clients or what I faced.
As you were building your business, what were some challenges that you face building your business?
I think honestly, the hardest, and you kind of explained this earlier, like, you know how to be an attorney, but you didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. Like, I was the exact same. I know how, and I still sometimes struggle with these foundational pieces. I know money. It's my gift. It is my calling. I can read a profit. I always say I read profit and loss statements like books. Numbers tell me a story, and I want to teach my students and clients how to read that story as well. But I didn't know how to create offers. I didn't know, even just the simplest thing about what do you name your company? Nobody talks about how hard it is just to create a name for your company. I knew all the financial things. Do I want to be an LLC? And I knew all the tax things. That was my education, but I had to figure out how to be an entrepreneur. I luckily came from a background in finance where I had to get my own clients. So I knew a lot about sales. I knew a lot about networking. I knew a lot about those things, but I wasn't taught how to price. I wasn't taught how to create offers. And shockingly, I actually wasn't taught how to budget. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things I love sharing. Now we have a personal finance course for entrepreneurs for this exact reason, because people are like, what do I set my salary to be? That's a huge question that nobody's teaching entrepreneurs. You have fluctuating income, and more than likely your business all businesses have high and low seasons. Mm-hmm. So taking a steady paycheck in a business that has fluctuating revenue is actually a hard question. Nobody's teaching that. So I always tell people, I worked in finance for 5 years. I have a degree in finance, and I still did not have a working budget. And that is why now I'm really passionate about helping people make money in their business and then manage it well personally. Let me say, wealth is not about how much money you make. It's how you spend the money you make. Yeah. And so I actually had to teach myself how to budget and how to live. I call it a spending plan because I always joke, budget's a 6-letter curse word. But so I created a spending plan. I teach all of my clients to create a spending plan for their business. And also we need one personally. And so that was another thing I learned those first few years as I was going out on my own and figuring out how to be an entrepreneur. You have to run your personal finances as well. And I'm really grateful that my husband was back in school. So the business had to support us financially. Yeah. And I'm grateful for that because that forced me to figure out budgeting and pricing and all those things. I actually say a lot with my students who have their business and it doesn't have to make money. I actually see, that can sometimes hinder people from pricing profitably and really taking the money because they don't have to. And so I still want people to know how to create a profitable business and profitable pricing. So those are the things I had to learn. Figuring out personal budgeting, pricing. Yeah. Just like you said, I knew how to be a CFO. I knew how to run numbers. I knew that. But being an entrepreneur was totally different. Like just the simplest thing of what do you even name your company? I remember writing down names. Yeah. Yeah. And figuring out what to call it.
Undergrad, I went to business school too, and my major was in finance and accounting. But even then, now today is a bit different in colleges and universities. They're actually teaching these things in some of the courses, but they didn't teach how to start your own business. They just taught you how to read somebody else's balance sheet and cash flow and income statement, and figure it out from there. But you're working for somebody else. You're working for a company that is probably pretty established. Also, you're not really joining small companies. And it's just such a different beast at that point, as opposed to your own small business or a startup company or something like that, where it is not as steady, or, there's not other elements of your business that's a safety net for this one company of yours or this one service or product of yours. And even in business school, you have accounting, you have account management. That's like one thing. That's one type of accounting, which is internal back-end accounting. And then you have financial accounting, which is outward accounting. That's how I perceive it. That's like the world, that's how you are to the world. And then the back end is what we're talking about right now is budgeting, which is absolutely part of any accountant's job. And it's not just budgeting for today, but forecasting also what you're about to do. And, again, thinking about your internal money and like how much you're spending on, all of your overhead and all that stuff. So it's really, I love that you have courses that you are teaching others who didn't go to business school, because even going to business school, you're just like, I don't know this. I don't even ask me about this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think too, most people don't get excited about an accounting class, but most people get excited learning how to take a steady paycheck from their business.
Yes.
And so I just am really grateful that I found this niche and this hole in the market that I was able to step into all the way back in 2013 of saying, nobody really cares about, every time my CPA says mitigate, I'm just like, we joke and laugh about his accountant speak. And there's not many financial professionals who are having these types of conversations in a way that's money is a tool to get you what you want and where you want to be in life and in business. And that's where I want to change the conversation from a set of structured rules to understanding data and metrics, and that it allows you to make smart strategic decisions in your business and personally to create the life that you truly want. And I know that's such a buzz phrase right now, but I really do think that was something that was such a differentiator when I started my business, because that's where I lead from. And the reason I lead from that is because, as I mentioned, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. I knew I wanted to help entrepreneurs make money in their business, understand their finances. But the only way I knew how to do that was through private equity. And so when I was working with the floral designer, I actually was shadowing a private equity firm, was looking into being an investment banker. And I remember sitting down with them and they told me, Shanna, you will be traveling to see clients Monday through Thursday every single week. You'll be home with your family Friday through Sunday. And I just knew that was not the life that I wanted. And so that's really where I sat down and said, I have to choose the life that I want and build a company around it. And I just thought, why are private equity and investment bankers traveling to meet clients when I could just get on the internet and talk to them like this? So, and all these consulting firms are away from their family all week long, passing each other on airplanes probably, because this consultant from Atlanta is going to New York and this consultant from New York is coming to Atlanta. And I just thought that was, clearly not the life that I wanted. And so I had this crazy idea. I was like, I'll just start a consulting firm and do it here and either on the internet or people can come to me. And it was amazing. I just thought if I could just pay our bills while Kyle is in school, once he gets out of school, we'll be fine. Just need to pay our bills till then. And it just really took off. I made $106,000 in profit my very first year in business. And from there, it just went up and up and up. And I just have been amazed and grateful, truly blessed at being able to help other women and men create this business that is supported for the life, really designed for the life they want. So I got off on a tangent, but I'm just so grateful for getting to do this. And for me, it comes back to understanding our finances, because I'm able to make decisions for the fact that I haven't been on social media since 2017 and I still run a very profitable company. That to me was a data-backed decision.
Yeah.
What is the best use of my time for marketing?
Yes.
And people just always are like, how are you off social media? How do you run a business off social media? I'm like, actually, the data tells me this is the best use of my time. So to not be on social media. So I want to empower other people to do that.
Gosh, I love that. I just had this conversation with my team yesterday that I do not want to be on social media that much. Not because I don't enjoy it. So I just feel like it takes away a lot of my time that I could be more productive with, either with my client work or, research or development at that point, self-growth, family time. I'm like, I don't want to take videos of me doing something and then I don't want to do that. Like, it just takes away so much of my time. Not that I don't want to connect with anybody, but at the same time, that's not the conversion. And I hate calling it that, but it just doesn't make sense at that point. And not that I've done any numbers on it. I'm going to just be very clear about that. It's just the feel that I got. And then so therefore I'm just acting on that feeling. But it was just one of those like, but it makes sense, like it's amazing. 2017, you've not been really on social media promoting your business, marketing your business. And I think a lot of the element also are your clients who are truly going to be your clients sitting on social media watching you, or like where are your clients hanging out, and so you get that kind of also, or your target market. And that kind of also kind of goes with the whole where you're spending your time. So how do you market then? What is it that you do in your marketing?
Yeah. So in 2017, actually, I did all the numbers, and 70% of my clients at the time and students were actually coming from Instagram. Instagram was the big social media in 2017. And so that's really scary to quit your main marketing source. And I don't recommend doing it like cold turkey. Have a plan in place. But I was able to do that because I had launched my signature program, the Blueprint Model. We launched once a year. And so that really sustained us financially for the year. So I had a safety net. I knew financially we would be fine if, our revenue and sales went, we didn't have a lot of clients coming in. So I just was going to take a year off and figure it out. And what I had determined, because I track my time religiously, was that I spent at least 5 hours a week on Instagram. So if you do one post a day, that's 1 hour of, posting, writing your content, engaging. And I'm the same. I am a finance person. I think that's my gift. Photography, videography. I know now reels is apparently the thing to do. So I've never done a reel. I wouldn't even know how to do it. I'm so bad at technology. So I was feeling like I'm working outside of my best strengths already, trying to make beautiful images, but I have high aesthetic. I have an art degree. Like I want this to be beautiful. So I was already frustrated that I couldn't make my Instagram as beautiful as I wanted it to be. And that's not my job. So I was tracking my time and I thought if I could take those same 5 hours and put it towards a different marketing avenue. And this is what, again, I teach all my clients. This is one of those core building blocks is you have to bring eyes into an audience, into your business somehow. There's so many forms of marketing, so many forms. And so for me, I landed on content marketing. Content marketing and Instagram is just content marketing, but I think content marketing for me, blogging and SEO live a lot longer. So I wanted to focus on creating great content on my blog. We've toyed around a little bit with a YouTube channel. We're about to bring that back. And then now we just launched the podcast, which the podcast is a little different because it's not searchable. It's not, doesn't have that same SEO, but we do blog about every podcast. So we make it searchable. But yeah, I just focus on creating great content and driving traffic that way. And within a year, it took us actually 18 months to replace our traffic from Instagram by content marketing. We use Pinterest a lot. And so I vowed to stay off of Instagram until I had replaced that traffic driver to my website by something else. And then I just never really got back on because I truly believe my time is best spent and I just enjoy it better. And that's what I tell everybody. If you love social media, Instagram, whatever it is, do that thing. I just did not personally love it. And so I wanted to find the best use of my time into how to best, because you ask the question, where's my ideal audience? They probably are on Instagram.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I recognize that. So I knew I had to build that know, like, and trust factor in another way. And so I think the podcast, people get to hear my voice. YouTube, people get to see video. And then I do some free classes. I love teaching. So webinars is a great fit for me. And so I just find, I wrote down years ago, I was like fresh out of college. I wrote down, am I thinking more about what I have to do or what I want to accomplish? And I just think, well, genius 21-year-old Shanna wrote that down. And I think about that with marketing. What are we trying to accomplish? Because the path to get there can be done in so many different ways. Instagram, social media is not the only way. We are trying to drive traffic to our website and then get them on an email list that we own. And so if that's the goal, figure out the best way for you to do that. Some people love Instagram, TikTok, all the things. I did not. I love video. I love the podcast. That's my new favorite thing. So that's what I did. And I just replaced that marketing. And again, for me, it comes back everybody's like, oh, broken record. It comes back to the numbers. Like I know how many people I need to get to my website every single month to have the clients book that we need, to have the student sales that we need. And then it just becomes simple math. And that's just really helpful.
I love how everything for you is the math. That is what, at the end of the day, that's what you're leaning into, and that's what you're using for numbers. And it's not just a feeling, or it's not just an arbitrary thought process that, oh, I think it's around this number, but in reality, it's like way up or way below. So you're actually using the numbers and you're going into that. So, and I know that you were saying earlier that you teach all of these concepts in your classes. So where can, the audience come to and like sign up? Because I am so inclined to sign up right now.
Yeah. So shannaskidmore.com is where I hang out. Just come there and then get on the email list. I joke that the email list is basically my social media. So that's where I connect with my groups, my insiders every single week. I send emails out on Fridays, and that's where people can stay in the know. And, something's so fun that happened back in 2017. I had people email me like, we couldn't find you online, so we signed up for your email. And it's like, Isn't that exactly what we want people to do? So go to shannaskidmore.com, get on that email newsletter. And that's where the best way to hear from me every single week and what's going on. We have a lot of great resources from the podcast to YouTube. So on the blog. So it's really for all learning styles. If you like to read, if you like to listen, if you like to, because I know I was not a podcast listener until I had my daughter. And then I was driving to drop her off at childcare about an hour every day. And so I became a podcast listener. So we have 3 different formats for people to learn. So shannaskidmore.com, get on that newsletter. And
what's your podcast name?
So my podcast is called Consider the Wildflowers. And we just launched it. It's been a month. And it's been really fun. So I think, I think we're on episode 7 or 8.
Awesome.
And it's amazing. It's really just inside peek. I would say it's the reel behind the highlight reel of entrepreneurs and sharing their story. And because I've gotten to work in finance for 15 years, and I hear stories from entrepreneurs that nobody else gets to hear. And my husband always jokes, it's the content everybody wants to know, like, how much money do you make and how do you price that? But nobody else gets to ask. But I get to ask these hard questions because I've done it for forever. And so I'm really thankful for all the brave entrepreneurs that come on there and share their story and their numbers and like what's really going on behind that highlight reel. So Consider the Wildflowers podcast.com is where people can find.
Awesome. And then on YouTube, have you launched that yet, or is that in the works?
So we are bringing back YouTube. If you go on there now, it'll be there's still some great videos on there, but they're, 2 or 3 years old from old school Shanna. So go on there. Don't judge. It's really good content. We had 2 Cents Tuesday, which was really a fun series that we did with a Q&A. Those are really good. There's some really great videos about which numbers to know. So YouTube, Shanna Skidmore, and find our channel. And then we're bringing it back this next month. And so we'll have fresh new content on there soon.
Awesome. Well, this is so exciting. I'm so happy that you were able to hang out with us today. Before I say bye to you, though, there's 2 questions that I really like to ask all my guests. Number 1, what is your anchor when things are just going crazy around you? What holds you steady?
Oh, I love this question. So I know not everyone listening shares the same faith, but for me, it's my faith in the Lord and knowing that I am such a control freak. I'm like a perfectionist type A, that I'm actually not in control, and I can just trust and have faith that the Lord has always provided for us. And so that calms me. And it allows me to just go back to how can I serve people more? How can I just continue to show up and serve? So for me, it is absolutely my faith is my anchor and what gives me hope.
I love that. And what is maybe a book that you're reading right now, or something that you're watching on Netflix or another streaming?
Yeah. So I am really excited about Where the Crawdads Sing. Have you heard of that book?
Yeah, there's a movie coming out, right?
Right. So it might be out. I'm not sure. Yeah. I vowed to finish the book before I watched the movie. So it's a really great book. So that's what I'm reading.
I remember walking through the airport when it just came out, like the book, and it was just like on the top, 10 books or whatever. And I was thinking, oh man, I should get it. But then I'm like, well, it seems a little sad. I don't know. Is it sad, or is without telling us the story?
I don't know yet. I don't know the ending. It's a really incredible kind of mystery novel.
Okay.
And I know that it's been topping the list for years. It came out, I started it years ago and then put it down because we moved and I like packed it.
Yeah.
And so finally I unpacked it after a couple of years. And I was like, oh my goodness. So when I saw the movie was coming out, I was like, I really have to finish reading this before the movie.
Now I'm inspired to read it too.
Yeah, it's very good. So far, so good.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. You gave us such amazing tips, during our time talking. And I love how you made it so simple, actually. Like, even for anybody, it's a really simple process. It's not overwhelming. So thank you for that.
Good. I'm so glad. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Law Chat. I hope this was super beneficial to you. I really enjoyed sharing this information with you today. And I have to ask you for a favor. Like I did in the beginning, I'm going to ask you again. Please share this with your community, whether it's a friend, family, or another colleague, or someone else on your Facebook or Instagram or other social media spot. Share this, subscribe, and stay tuned for other episodes coming in so you are always up to date. But then also take another moment and share this episode with your community, because when you share it with everybody else, not only are they benefiting, but also the information that I'm sharing is reaching out to more people, because at the end of the day, we want to rise together with our community, and I can only do that with your help. Now, I am so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you tuned in, and I want to hear from you as well. So shoot me a DM on Instagram at GVP Law or at Law Chat with Girija. I would love to hear from you. I would love to also hear what other episodes that you would like to hear about, topics that you want to hear about, and also just connect with you. And thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.